views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey everybody, and welcome. I'm the Dr. Bob Lee. Welcome to Open BxRx, our special coverage of COVID-19, the elections, current protests, and more in our community and beyond. Coming up on today's show, we'll take a look at an upcoming rally and talk with two women behind it and what they are doing with a goal to empower people on the streets. Plus, students around the world just graduated, and many are looking for jobs. And we'll be joined by an author and coach who has tips from her new book on what should be going on and what they should be doing during the interview. Then we'll hear from a group reporting on criminal justice and check out their We Are Witnesses series. And after that, we'll learn about the Green New Deal and find out what one group is doing with the goal bringing environmental change to New York City. Then Bobby C has the latest in the world of sports. And then later on, we'll discuss what's in store for the future of restaurants and what you should know as regions of New York enter different phases of reopening. So stay tuned. We are now open. Hey, our first guests are organizing a rally, and they join us today with a lot of information. We welcome Iesha Sekou, founder, CEO of Street Corner Resources, and organizer Awliyah Safi. Welcome, welcome, welcome. During this pandemic, how are you guys faring?
Well, I'll start by saying that so far, so great. We've been doing really well. Street Corner Resources, we have an outreach team called Speak Peace Forward. And we've been actually in the community during the pandemic early on. We're actually finishing up our 14th week of distributing masks and gloves. We've been recognized and asked to be ambassadors for Harlem by the mayor's office. We are funded by the mayor's office on to prevent gun violence. The mayor's office to prevent gun violence. And so we've been literally on the ground using our mobile unit, which is a big 35-foot bus that we take through the community to do distribution. And we normally do education, employment, and training. So we're part of the crisis management system for New York City, which is the Pure Violence family. So there are like 22 sites in the city that do the work that we do. But we took the leadership differently from a lot of folk to just go ahead in the very, very beginning, before we were told we had to wear masks and gloves, to give out masks because we just knew that it had to be airborne, this COVID-19 virus.
You have an anniversary coming up, right? Someone in your family, a significant other, passed away on June the 24th?
Absolutely. My twin flame, my loved one, passed away June 24th. It was gun violence, crime, but it didn't have anything really to do with his life and how he stood. When my loved one passed away, it was just like so strange to me. I didn't understand gun violence. It didn't have to approach my door, and I didn't think it ever would.
What do you have coming up on the 24th? Because what you had last week was beautiful. Go ahead.
Right. So I'm going to let Awliyah talk about the 24th. It's really a call for peace. It's a call for calm, right, Awliyah? And unconditional love.
Absolutely.
And Awliyah actually brought this to me and said, I want you to help me with this. So I'll let Awliyah speak more to that.
Okay, so the 24th is basically a platform for the community, our elders and our youth to come out and to support one another. That's what Leroy stood for. That's what I stand for, and that's what a lot of us stand for. We just haven't had the platform or the courage to step out, or even the peace of mind to really just step out and just do it. Like, there's so much going on. So when it comes in your spirit to do it, then you just like organize it and do it. Make the connections that you need to make to do it. And so what's going to be happening there is we're going to be sharing a list of Black-owned businesses and Black-owned entrepreneurs. We're going to be handing out those lists so that people can become more familiar with what's going on within our community, within the community of Central Harlem, and how we're alive, and just being able to connect with just the community at large. Whether you're a creative, whether you're a business professional, we're not putting judgment on who's coming out and who's being supported. This is an event where everyone is being supported, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Christian. We're not putting any periods on who we consider to be community. We're inviting all the community to come and to share in this space of unconditional love and to be reminded. Love. Yeah, to be reminded.
What are you calling this event?
It's called Unconditional Love.
Unconditional love. Agape love. Unconditional love.
I also offer an open space for women within my community. So if women are overwhelmed, I understand that and I empathize with that. And so I've opened up my space for women who are just overwhelmed and need someone to talk to and need someone to find networks with. They can contact me at airsheisevents@gmail.com. You're not alone. Like, you have a sister that is sincere and in the community that's here for you. So, let's be together. Let's work together.
That's what's up. Iesha, what's that website that you're putting together?
Our website, which is still under construction, but you can see it, is scrnyc1.org. S like Sam, crnyc.org. And you can also go to our Instagram page and our Facebook page. And that's Street Corner Res, at Street Corner Res. And so what I want the community and the listeners to know is that Pure Violence, Street Corner Resources, the Speak Peace Forward team, Pure Violence program, does as much work as we do to engage the community, but not just engage. We are trying to create and change the mindset that we have accepted violence in our community. We started calling our neighborhood the hood. We have to go back to neighborhood. We have to go back to us giving to each other without being suspect of each other.
Thank you guys so much. We love you for what you're doing. All right, we love you right here. I've got more coming up next right here on Open. Welcome back. I'm the Dr. Bob Lee, and our next guest is a staff writer for the Massey Project and joins us to discuss their We Are Witnesses project. We welcome Nicole Lewis to the show. Nicole, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Tell us all about it, Nicole. You're a staff writer, and you've been writing for the Massey Project. Tell us about that first.
Sure. So the Massey Project was founded in 2014 with the central idea that the criminal justice system was broken. That it needed to be reformed, and that the first step often on that process is just having factual, accurate information about all the different ways that it goes wrong, that things break down. And so that was the vision, to create and sustain a sense of urgency about criminal justice in this country. And We Are Witness was a project basically designed to tell and explain and show the human cost of the criminal justice system. So often we hear all these numbers and statistics when we talk about criminal justice and incarceration. There are 2.2 million people locked up, 1 million people in jails across the country, $80 billion a year being spent on prison, people in cages, but that's only like a small part of the story. And so We Are Witness, started with this premise that there are millions of Americans
affected by the prison system.
That's right, who have contact, either direct contact, they're incarcerated, they work in the system, or they have family members, they're judges, right? The actual total universe is much, much bigger. And so we wanted to hear their stories.
And of course, there's probation. You heard the story of Rashad Brooks. He was on probation, so he really didn't want. He was trying to do well for his family and everything. So that may have been one of the reasons why he ran, and that escalated into something ugly, and tragic.
I mean, I think a lot of people don't know that if you spend time in prison, you come out on probation, you're on parole, that for future contact with the police, right, drinking alcohol in some cases can send you right back to prison. And so, you know, you saw that video of him kind of talking about what it felt like and what it meant for him to be ensnared in this system. And we are witness. It takes that same approach, right? Listening directly to people who have this firsthand experience, this knowledge, to illuminate parts of what's going on that we might not have ever heard before.
And he was trying to climb out of the system. He was trying to get his life together. He wanted to do well. He was celebrating his daughter's birthday or whatever it was. And, you know, he was just trying to do the right thing and climb out. But it was like so difficult these days for people on probation to get out of it.
Yeah,
people wrapped up in the system to get out of it.
That's right. What we sort of think about is a system of state surveillance, where people are, in some cases, on ankle monitors in some states, where your movement is tracked and you have an understanding of where you should be and where you shouldn't be. In some cases, people are paying into a system in order to have those monitors on, checking in with their probation, their parole officer, following all kinds of rules. There's a lot of things that goes along with being on probation.
So Nicole, tell us about the We Are Witnesses series.
The We Are Witnesses really strives to document some of these more, you know, personal, human challenges. One of them out of our New York series, where we sat down with Eric Garner's daughter. Think about, right, you know, here she is, someone who's lost her father, and the video of his death is spread all across the internet. Well, there's a young child, right, who was there, who you know, this is her dad, right? And so trying to sort of grapple with the question of what does it mean for her to have had this contact with the criminal justice system? What does it mean to have lost a father, you know, that father figure, that the toll is much more personal, right? It's not just that the police did something wrong, that we need to be thinking about chokeholds, right? That there's a young person who unfortunately she also passed away, but you know, a young person for a moment in time just was without a parent.
And they have the Eric Garner's bill out now, right? Or act, what did they call it, a bill that was passed? It was just passed last week by Governor Cuomo.
Many years later.
You know, well, it took about 5 years for them to make a decision on everything too. When we talk about defunding the police department, what does that actually mean?
Sure. So I wrote about this for the Marshall Project, and in the course of my reporting, I thought this one sort of phrase really stood out to me, and it was that abolition is the goal and defund is the strategy. I thought that was really smart. And so often when what I saw was that a lot of people were confused. Okay, defund the police, what does that mean? Why would we do that, right? Who's going to keep us safe? And many of the people who are supporting this movement basically make this argument to say the police actually don't keep us safe. And for Black and brown people, in many instances, they are causing harm, right? So we're thinking of, you know, George Floyd and, you know, Rayshon Brooks, who we were just talking about, right? That these little moments, tiny little incidents where you're using a counterfeit bill or, you know, you're driving drunk, and in a fatality and in someone being killed. And so they're asking this question of why do we spend so much money every year to uphold and support this method of policing, this system that actually causes harm in certain communities, when we could be taking that money, right? In New York, for example, where I'm from, we spend about $6 billion each year on the NYPD. And so organizers and activists there are saying, let's take some of that money and transfer it into community services and community programs that address what they see as some of the root causes of crime, of violence, of harm, that they want mayors and governors right across the country to be thinking about. How do you end racism, eliminate oppression, create economic opportunity for all people? How do we use that money from the defunding to divert it to some of these programs? And so that's really what this sort of vision or this push, I think, is all about.
I think in New York City, they're using about $1 billion of it, right? Like the narcotic squad, or the not the ununiformed people.
That's right.
Who ran out, busting people. I forgot what they called them. But they got rid of them, and they put them into other areas.
That's right. And so I think what the measure is that there's this, squad of plainclothes police officers who do kind of undercover, work around gangs and drugs and that kind of stuff. And they're being diverted into what we call community-oriented policing. So they're supposed to be focusing on, particular neighborhoods and things like that.
Wow. I wonder how that's going to fare.
Yeah, and I would
community policing is in, though. If you remember way back, they used to know the names of the officers that patrolled your area.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, at the same time, and a lot of the activists and organizers who I've spoken to, who are pushing for defund are saying, community-oriented policing is not the same thing as really giving money to social services. And in fact, they cite, different instances in which police are in neighborhoods, but someone still winds up harmed. And I think the one case that really comes to mind is in New York, where Saheed Vassal, who had a history of mental illness, was seen on the street in Crown Heights, holding a pipe, and he was shot by officers in a neighborhood that had this program. I believe the officers were not part, right? So they didn't know him, but he was known to other officers there, and it still didn't really protect him. And so I think their argument often is we actually need less cops, less opportunities for interaction. That's the sort of preferred course. But it's true in New York, $1 billion being diverted away from traditional policing.
Well, we thank you for all the work that you do. I know you're the youngest organization, the journalism organization, to win the Pulitzer Prize. And we congratulate you guys for that. And thank you for all the work that you guys are doing. Anything that's coming up that we should know about, or you want to tell us about?
In terms of the Marshall Project coverage?
Yes.
What stories that we're working on? I don't know. I mean, I think there's so many that I'm just like a flurry in my head. But we've continued to write and continue to write about coronavirus as well. There's a story upcoming about police violence and different kinds of trainings that officers get or don't get that accounts for all the violence that you see. We've got some stories upcoming potentially about gender and policing. So stay tuned for all that. Okay,
great. Thank you for all your work. We really appreciate you.
Of course.
There she is, Nicole Lewis, staff writer, reporter, The Marshall Project. We appreciate you. I'm going to take a break. I've got more coming up on Open next. Welcome back. I'm the Doc Bob Lee from 107.5 WBLS and Open Channel 67 and 68. As many have just graduated and are on their way, on the hunt for jobs, our next guest joins us to share more about her book. What were they thinking? What were they thinking? And avoiding behaviors and attitudes that can ruin a job interview. We welcome author Janice Jenkins. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Good morning.
What were they thinking?
I have said
Good
that
question.
as a person who has interviewed numerous people over the past 20 years. I have uttered that I have uttered that sentence several times.
And
There,
what made you utter that?
Sometimes job candidates come to a job interview, they dress the part, their resumes look good, which is the reason why they've been called in for an interview.
Yeah.
They show up for the interview and they either say something or they do something that is totally inappropriate, and that gives the employer some pause as to whether or not this person would be a good candidate and a good fit for their company.
Yeah. One thing that you can say that will ruin the whole job interview. So you have to know about that job before you get there, and you have to maybe practice a little bit before you get there, prepare before you get there. Huh?
Yes, absolutely. I encourage candidates to research the company. It's very important. Know about the company, know their products and services, know their customer base, know their mission, know their vision and values. Go to their social media sites and see what they're posting on social media. So be well informed about the company before you go to the interview.
Prepare before you get there. All right,
Absolutely.
Give me a quick synopsis of what this book is all about. I have an
Sure.
idea, but I want you to
Sure.
tell our audience.
Sure. So about 5 years ago, I was invited to conduct a workshop for young people who were job seeking. These were young people whose parents had been incarcerated.
Yes.
And as I was doing the workshop, I was so encouraged by the fact that I got an opportunity to talk to these young people about how to interview, and also to talk about the mistakes that they should avoid making when they interview.
And what are some of those mistakes that you should avoid?
Okay. First and foremost, show up for the interview. And the reason I say that is because my personal experience, as recently as January, I was looking for some employees, and I had 6 job candidates who did not show up for the interview. They didn't call me. They didn't email me to tell me that they were no longer interested. They just didn't show up. So first and foremost, show up for the interview.
And if you're going to show up, be on time.
Be on time, at least 10 to 15 minutes early. Be on time. If you're running late, see if you can contact the office to let the employer know. If that's not possible, when you show up for the interview, be apologetic. I have a scenario in my book where I talk about a candidate I interviewed who was 20 minutes late for an interview.
Yeah.
When she got to the interview, she didn't acknowledge it. She acted as if nothing had happened. But I was sitting there for 20 minutes waiting for her.
And that can translate into a lot of latenesses if you get the job.
Absolutely.
So you're like, wait a minute. All right.
Yes, absolutely.
So what are some of the other points?
Some of the other points. When you do the interview, be respectful. Keep your mobile phone off. Keep it off. Don't glance at it. Take notes. Be prepared when you go to an interview. Have a pad and paper with you, and say to the employer, say to the interviewer, I'd like to take some notes. And most of the time, that's absolutely fine. So take notes and listen very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
Don't cut the interviewer off. Listen very carefully and wait for an opening so you can ask any questions that you have.
Of course, there are a lot of people that never shut up, but you got to find a way to jump in.
Exactly.
But you are there for the job, so if they're going to talk, let them go on and talk, and then they'll ask you a question. They'll stop because it is your time. They've given you this particular time to come in and try to, see if it's a go see
Right.
if I can get this job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a conversation with the employer because you're interviewing them as well. Again, you're coming in with all this advanced knowledge because you've done the research, but you want to talk to them and you want to try to delve a little deeper into, what the company is really like, again, the mission, the vision, the value. So you want to have a conversation about those things. And the last thing you want to do is to do or say something inappropriate that's going to sabotage your interview. Interview attire, that's a perfect example. Right now, you can't really see me, but I'm dressed as if I'm going to an interview. I think that even during a virtual interview, I really think that people should dress the part because it has an effect on your mindset. It has you thinking, I need to be professional. I need to be personable. So dress business casual is perfectly fine.
And make sure you shine your shoes.
Absolutely.
Just in case they get you to stand up, can you stand up and just turn around?
Right.
It could be a fashion thing. I don't know. Make sure.
Well, you don't want
for that.
Right, and you don't want to dress like you're going to a party.
Right.
Again, business casual. I've had job candidates come in, and I sat there and I wondered, are they going to a dance or something because they just weren't dressed appropriately, for the interview.
So you've been doing this for a while, but the thing that made you want to put this book together was people who were coming in that weren't prepared, probably, right? I'm not sure.
Correct. Well, in job interviewing, there's a lot of emphasis on the questions that you need to be prepared to answer, and that's fine. But, again, I have not seen, before I wrote my book, I really didn't see a lot of information about behaviors and attitudes. And that's really important because, again, a person can look great on paper. And when you meet them in person, you just, their personality and, again, their attitude is so inappropriate that, you're thinking this person is just not going to be a good fit for my company.
Yeah.
You don't want to hire someone who is not going to provide good service to your clients and your customers.
Yeah. And then you can tell right away what he put or what she put on paper is not that person.
Correct. Correct. And I've had those experiences too. I've interviewed those candidates where I looked at the resume and I was just so excited. I said, wow, this person looks great. She'd be great for my team. And then she came to the interview and within the first 10 minutes, I was just not really impressed. I was not impressed. I try to be a thorough interviewer, even during times when people are being inappropriate. I continue with the interview. I like to give people a full interview.
Yeah.
Because
they may turn it around. It could be like the world famous Apollo thing. I've hosted a number of those amateur nights where people go in and they get on stage and may be a little nervous in the beginning. And then their first few bars are like, the first few things that they sing. And then the audience says, boo, but you don't stop. You keep going and you come out of it. And then you wind up getting the big applause and you wind up sometimes winning. Right. Banjos.
Right. Another thing that is important for job candidates to remember is that they're selling themselves. So what that means is you want to tell your story. You want to talk about your strengths. You want to talk about those times when you've been a leader or you've been a manager, even if you're not applying for that type of position, because leadership is important in every type of position. And one thing I always caution job candidates against, and this is something that gets a lot of people in trouble, they go into an interview and they badmouth former employers, former supervisors, former colleagues. You don't want to do that. You don't want to badmouth people because we've all had experiences with difficult colleagues and supervisors. We've all had that. But the important thing to do is to turn that messaging around and talk about the positives, talk about the things that you've learned from these individuals and talk about what you've contributed, to that company. That's what you need to be focusing on.
Exactly. All right. Seems like you know your stuff. So how can people reach you and get in touch with you and find out more about you and your book?
Okay, so I have a website, and my website is called JaniceTheMentor.blog. I'm also on Instagram. It's Janice Jenkins 5110. So people can reach me through through those platforms.
There you go. Janice Jenkins, thank you so much for all you do, and find some great people out there and find some jobs, help them get those jobs.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for your service. Janice Jenkins, her book? What were they thinking? Pick it up. You can get it where? Barnes & Noble, Amazon?
Yes, Amazon. Lulu.com is my publisher. But you can get the book at all three sites.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation.
You got it. Janice Jenkins right here. What were they thinking? That's her book right there. And thank you for all that you do. We'll take a break right here. I've got more Open coming up next. Stay right there.
On Friday, we caught up with racing legend Bobby Unser. Here's part 2 of that interview with the Motorsports Hall of Famer. You win Pikes Peak in 1959, and then basically a year later you also started flying, which I thought was very interesting. So you get your first plane, which was something that you decided to do at that time, basically to try to get to and from these races much faster, to get out to California much faster. What was that experience like for you?
Well, that was a busy time, really busy time. And there was no leeway for time on that. Because here it is, here it is, here it is. Wow, there's a whole bunch of them. And I had to hit a whole bunch of them all the time. Because if I didn't, it's going to be a slow time in hell, you know. I need to win those races. And somehow or another I did. You know, it's really important to win. I mean, you can try to win, you can make something out of it, but to win, you gotta work hard, you know? Work hard.
I've heard that you probably spent more time flying over the years than you actually spent racing.
No question about that, yeah. No question about that. But it also became fun. I know it might sound a little weird to some people, but it really amounted to a lot of fun for me too, because now it goes up, levels off, and just keeps going. Because I got a hold of it, you know. That thing I got a hold of, and it's going to keep going. And then it works, you know. And I really liked it. I really liked the racing too. In other words, the racing was really fun, gave me a lot of satisfaction, really made me work hard. In other words, how in the heck are you going to get to it from the races? It's going to be a really hard job, is what the answer is. But it's not an unforgiving job. It's okay, and it's going to forgive you. But you don't need forgiving. You just need to race. You know, that's what it comes about.
And the missus, she flies too, right? She also flies.
Yes.
We should definitely give Lisa a shout out because she's been so great, you know, in organizing this as well.
how does she race and keep up all this stuff at the same time? I don't know how, but she did, and she got to where she really liked it. In other words, it was a big deal to her, and I mean, no place to go except up.
Well, behind every great man, there's a great woman, they say. So
I believe that's true.
So now, Bobby, after your racing days, you of course get a chance to go into announcing and be in the broadcast booth, and you're actually on the call for when Al wins his fourth 500. I was wondering if that is the best moment for you in the broadcast booth, especially considering that you actually won an Emmy Award for your broadcasting of the 500 in 1989.
That was nice. That was nice. He thinks I took it for granted, but let me tell you something. To see an Unser win another Indy 500, you just rang the big bell. All the ringing you could ever do is going to happen, and did happen. And I just loved it. I mean, it was so nice to be able to know that you got that done. And it did happen, or is going to happen. And it was just totally nice. Totally nice.
I don't know if our movie buffs at home know this, but there is an old-time movie called Winning with Paul Newman in it. And in that movie, actually, the car that he drives in Indianapolis is a replica of your car that you won with in 1968. And to boot, you actually have a cameo in the movie. I was wondering what your fondest recollections of being part of that film were or are, and then also what it was like to be around Paul Newman.
We became good friends immediately. In other words, we didn't have to wait for the friendship to happen. And that was nice because I'm sure that you were somewhat the same way, but you look at a movie and you say, wow, I really like that guy. Remember, you haven't cut a big hog in the rear end or anything, but you say, I like that man. I like his movies. I like what he does. Then all of a sudden, you're standing there shaking hands with him, and he likes you, and you like him. And wow, that's the way to go, I liked Paul Newman a bunch, and I'm pretty sure he liked me a bunch.
I think it's a very cool movie. I'm sure there's a lot of movie buffs at home that might not have seen that film, and I would definitely recommend it, during the coronavirus pandemic if you're stuck at home.
Get busy. See, for an old movie, come on, it was pretty nice, I mean, maybe not the best movie in the world, but Paul Newman was definitely hot dog,
Of course.
I mean, really hot dog. He just I tell you what, he liked racing as much as I do or more than I do. That man was racing nut. Had to have his race cars. And that was nice.
Speaking of being at home, Bobby, as our fans at home can see behind you, Unserville is amazing. All of your awards and your trophies. And like I had mentioned earlier about the family basically having that base in New Mexico and you and your brother staying there for so many years, raising your family there. Did you ever think of going anywhere else, or did you commit to yourself that that was where you wanted to be?
It wasn't want, it was necessities. Just think about this. You basically have to be someplace. And I picked Albuquerque not because it's the best place, it's because that's where I wanted to live. Al's the same way, my dad the same way, all of us the same way. I know it's going to nip us a little bit and stuff, and you're going to find things that you don't like, but mostly you're going to find what you do like if you stay there. If you stay like with me in Albuquerque, I like it. It's okay. No problems, no big time things going on. But I'll tell you what, there's plenty of small things sometimes, but there's plenty of things to offset them also, because they do get offset sometimes.
When it's all said and done, let's say even 100 years from now, if someone brings up Bobby Unser's name, what do you want them to remember most about you?
I want them to remember that Bobby Unser was one hell of a race driver. Really good. And I know that I've been good many times. I know I was able to do it, and I ain't through yet. I may decide I want to do something else too, you know?
Well, 3-time winner of the Indianapolis 500, 13 times at Pikes Peak, and you're pretty much in every single motorsports Hall of Fame that you could be in. You've had an incredible career, both in racing and then, of course, after racing. It's been such an honor and a treat to have you on our show, Bobby. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, you can't imagine how much it is to me, how much it means to me. Because New York, hey man, that's a long ways away. You know how far that is? Too far to be real, you know?
Well, that's the Mecca. I definitely appreciate you taking a stroll with us down memory lane, and it's really been great to be part of Unserville and the Bobby Unser legend.
What a nice time and way to do this. This one was really fun. This one was okay. I love it. So anytime you want to do it, you just give a holler, make it happen by hollering at me, and we'll both make it happen.
Great. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Thanks, Bobby.
Welcome back. Our next guest is from Sunrise NYC. It's a group fighting for a Green New Deal. Joining us with all the information and all the details, we have Berenice Tompkins. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us about this Sunrise NYC, this powerful group of young people fighting for a Green New Deal.
Yeah, well, I think that you expressed that really well. So Sunrise NYC is the local hub of Sunrise National, which is a national network of young people mobilizing to address the climate crisis and create millions of good jobs in the process. And a really important framework that we work for to do that is a Green New Deal. And we have endorsed a number of candidates who we feel are Green New Deal champions, and one of them is Jamal Bowman. And I'm very excited about that because Jamal would be representing my district here in CD16. But we do a lot of organizing locally to help actualize the vision of a Green New Deal. So we've also done a lot of work to support efforts to achieve a Green New Deal for public housing, which would have major implications for New York, of course. Normally, we also do a lot of, in-person mobilization. And of course, we've had to kind of shift a little bit because of our current circumstances, but we're still very active in the digital world and trying to make sure that the recovery that we see from the pandemic is just and inclusive and gets us toward a Green New Deal vision.
How does that Green New Deal vision look through the lens of your organization?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So the vision of a Green New Deal is part of it is the framework of a new Bill of Rights, which was actually a framework that FDR came up with around the time of the original New Deal. And so this would include that everybody has a right to health care, that everybody has a right to a family sustaining job, that everybody has a right to a quality education, and also that everybody has a right to clean air, clean water, access to nature, and a sustainable environment to live in. And So, and healthy food. That's a big part of it too.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, right. I mean, how could you say no to that? Exactly. And a really important aspect of the Green New Deal too is, of course, the job creation piece, but also that the benefits of that would be concentrated in the communities that have been hit the hardest by the climate crisis, and that women, people of color, people with disabilities would be prioritized in terms of training and employment opportunities in a new green and renewably powered economy.
Yeah. What do you want people to know about climate change? Some people think that it's a hoax. Other people believe that, hey, you got to trust and believe the science.
Yeah, I would say you absolutely do have to trust and believe the science. And also, the effects of the climate crisis are clearly visible all around us. It's not just something that scientists are talking about somewhere far away. It's something that we saw really clearly here in New York with Hurricane Sandy. The South experienced some really devastating tornadoes earlier this spring, and we can see how those interacted with the pandemic to create a really kind of a scary double whammy for a lot of the people who were hardest hit by that. So even as we deal with the pandemic, and even as we deal with ongoing racial injustice and racial violence in our country, and so much else, we can see still the ways that the impacts of climate change interact with all of these injustices, and the ways that the same people are hit the hardest by all three of those things. And so it's something that's very, very much real and very much with us, not even just, something that we need to believe science about, right? We can see it.
Yeah. Are you in touch with the elected officials? And I know you want to organize people to get out there and vote.
Yeah, we do. We do definitely want to organize people to get out there and vote. We do some work with current elected leaders as well around pushing for the issues that are important to us. For example, as I mentioned, around the Green New Deal for public housing. Recently we've been trying to lift up some of the amazing work that the Movement for Black Lives has been doing, and some of that has also involved working with our endorsed candidates. But yeah, we also are wanting to get some new faces into Congress to elect some people who will champion a Green New Deal. And so that's where Jamal comes in, along with a really amazing slate of other local folks who we've endorsed.
What projects are you working on right now that we should know about?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, so I would say the most significant one is currently mobilizing around. Well, I don't want to say that, actually. I think probably the most significant thing that we can do right now as an organization and as a movement is stand with the Movement for Black Lives and their calls for justice, and uplift what they're doing, because I think that's the most important thing happening right now around the country, period. But secondarily, that's not really our project. That's other people's work that we're trying to amplify. Secondarily to that, in terms of our own work, I would say mobilizing to get these folks into office it has been a really, really major focus over the past few months. And then thinking about how we can mobilize for a just recovery and how that fits into the framework of a Green New Deal. So we've also been doing some work to think about that vision. So we've been doing some writing and communications around just making sure that the framework of a Green New Deal is available to folks and is something that we can really seize as we think about what comes next after this crisis that we're currently facing.
We would like to see that.
Yeah, exactly.
What is next? What's around the corner?
That's such a good question. Honestly, we've had to be very adaptive in the last few months because so many really seismic shifts have occurred, right? And we always try to be, responsive to these changing circumstances. So in some ways, I think it's hard to know exactly what comes next. But certainly, I think, for the long haul, we are going to want to do more work to uplift work for racial justice that's going on locally and figure out how we can support that movement. And then also thinking about, once we get some of these folks into office, how can we work with them to ensure that our vision for a Green New Deal becomes actualized, and also, through November.
There you go. Thank you for all you guys are doing. I'm glad we found out more about you. But we can go to your website, right? sunrise-nyc.org.
Yes, we have a beautiful new website. So yeah, I definitely encourage people to check it out. Thank you so much for having me.
What is it again?
sunrise-nyc.org.
Thank you so much. Berenice Tompkins, Sunrise NYC. We appreciate you. We applaud you. We love you. And God bless you.
Oh, likewise. Thanks so much.
All right. Back with more Open coming up next. Welcome back. As the different regions of New York State enter different phases of reopening, our next guest has more about what this means for restaurants. She's been here before, so joining us to share more, we have Melissa Fleischut. She's the president and CEO of the New York State Restaurant Association. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be back.
So Melissa, what's happening with our restaurants now? I am hungry.
I think everybody's hungry at this point. So we're very optimistic that things are moving forward.
So what should people know? I mean, they like on their mark, get ready, go.
Yeah, that's what the mayor said. So I think that as far as the customers are concerned and the guests, be patient as we start to figure this all out. Wear your mask, wear your face covering, keep your social distance, help us to keep those rules in place and make them work for everybody. But that's what you're going to see as you start to go back. Those places that do have the ability to have outdoor dining and have seating for outdoor dining are certainly going to probably be anxious to open up. From our standpoint, the operator's standpoint, there's a lot of guidelines to go through and familiarize themselves with. So, just like I said, be patient, be kind, and give everybody, be safe for sure.
Yeah. So what are the phases that we're going through right now?
So phase one, from the restaurant industry standpoint, has been the takeout and the delivery, just as we had seen during the shutdown or the pause, depending on how you refer to it. So that continued in phase one. In phase two, we get to move to outdoor dining. Tables need to be spaced out, 6 feet of space in between the tables and the chairs. Guests need to be seated. They need to wear face coverings, except when they're seated, because obviously you need to take off that face covering to eat and drink. The employees are always wearing face coverings. That's required. So that's phase two. And then phase three is actually indoor dining. And what we've seen from the guidelines so far is that indoor dining is limited to 50% of your certificate of occupancy.
Melissa, do you think enough is being done for restaurants to survive? Because, you drive through the city and you see a lot of restaurants boarded up, or they're renting their space or they're moving out. Do you think enough is being done to help them survive?
Well, I think reopening is obviously going to help with the cash flow situation and help them to start to get income coming back through the door. But no, I don't think that alone is going to be enough. There's obviously a lot of limitations on what they've been able to do over the last few months, and some of them won't be able to do outdoor dining because they won't have the space. And then limited to 50% capacity indoors is going to be troublesome as well. As long as, you know, we're not getting any relief on the expense side, you can't have income at 50% and expenses at 100% and expect to make ends meet.
Well, they relaxed the notion that you can't drink outside. You see a lot of people standing outside with drinks, social distancing in some cases.
Yeah, alcohol to go has been helpful for the takeout and delivery folks that have been able to utilize that. And we're going to continue to push for that. We'd like to see that continue until we're back to a place where we can be open at 100% capacity at least. Yeah. At this point, we're hoping that the executive order for that gets extended. And there's also legislation pending that would allow us to do that for the next 2 years.
How can people help? What can they do to support?
I think the best thing they can do is to, you know, continue to order takeout and delivery. Come out if you're comfortable, and if you're not immune compromised, you don't have any health issues, follow the guidelines, help us follow the guidelines, wear your face coverings, social distance as much as you possibly can. I know density is always a concern in the city, but, you know, try to follow the guidelines and make it easy on the restaurant operators who are trying to reopen right.
I know, and it's so hard to do with the weather, and you see friends that you haven't seen in a long time. You've been locked in your home under quarantine, and now you get a chance to get out and enjoy people and a couple of drinks here and there. And sometimes people forget, you know. I see a lot of these things like this.
Oh, yeah, that's no good. That's not helping anybody.
Or you're like this and you put a hole in there and you smoke through the hole in the cigarette.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or under the nose.
Yeah, no, got to cover the nose too.
So people more or less forget, you know, I mean, we got to understand that there's a serious virus still out there lurking. And it's easy to transmit, so we have to continue to do what we did before to lower it.
Yeah, and it's important for the guests to understand that even if they feel safe and comfortable, there's other guests in the restaurant or outside at the restaurant dining out. There's the staff to think about. The staff is working really hard, coming back to work and trying to make everything right so that you can enjoy that experience. So, you know, cooperation is really important to keep everybody safe and to help keep the restaurants open as we go forward.
Melissa, thank you so much. Where can we go to find out more? Is there anything up on the website or social media wise?
Our website is at nysra.org, and we have a lot of information up there open to non-members, members, anybody who wants to view it. We send out daily updates. And then the New York Forward website has all of the guidelines for phase 1, 2, and 3 so far. So those are 2 good resources.
Thank you so much. Melissa Fleischut, President and CEO, New York State Restaurant Association. We love you. We thank you. Thank you for all that you do. God bless you and stay safe.
Thank you so much. The same to you. Stay safe.
All right. All right. We're going to take a break. I've got more open coming your way next. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in and checking it all out. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today's show. We want to thank our guests and you, our viewers, for tuning in and checking it. Always keep it tuned right here to BronxNet for continued coverage. Thank you very much for letting us share in this space and time with you. And always remember this: what you are is God's gift to you, and what you make of yourself is your gift to God. So choose your choice and let your choice control the chooser. I'll catch you over 107.5 WBLS, and stay safe. We love you. Be blessed. Peace.